Hello! In this video I'm gonna cover the information which Otrok Vyacheslav left for us about the structure of the Earth, because only after understanding that we will be able to understand some of the phenomena which most likely we will witness in the next decade during the shift of the ages. And a small reminder that the reason for which I think this information is very reliable is the accuracy of his prophecies and the countless miracles, healing miracles reported by thousands of people while he was alive and later on at his burial site. First I will cover what he said about the structure of the Earth, and after that I will cover the prophecies which can be properly understood when this structure is properly understood. So first of all, the Earth as such, the entire structure, is way larger than most people imagine nowadays. What we call Earth is only tip of the iceberg, because most of it is currently hidden from our race. We only inhabit the top layer, a very thin peel, so to say, and we've got no clue about the underground races which reside in the cavities inside, some of them of which are rather huge, like kilometers deep, below which there are giant stalactites on which the entire very stable structure rests, and the stalactites themselves, in their turn, they rest on waters of very high density, Vyacheslav said. Actually, to see the entire Earth together with its resting place, one has to go very, very far. Only from as far as the Sun, one could get a glimpse of the entire thing. If one tries to see it from the perspective of, let's say, the Moon, one will just see endless Earth below. One is not high enough to perceive the entire giant thing. And as far as what Vyacheslav called waters of immense density, that is actually the Garbhodaka ocean. Garbhodaka, that's how it is called in the Vedic literature, and it is the place where the earth rests ultimately. That's what supports it, so it is the very same thing. In the Vedas, it is mentioned a number of times. Its dimensions are also provided. I'm not sure if it is properly converted to modern terms, and if it is possible to convert it indeed, because other dimensions are most likely involved as well. And of course, the ancient cosmology is way more accurate than ours. And he said that these historic drawings with the earth resting upon elephants and then upon tortoises, they're not exactly accurate, but they are kind of nearer to the truth compared to the modern models. He said they are not actually elephants, but they use that symbol because those giant stalactites, they resemble the form of elephant tusks. As far as the physical shape of what we currently call Earth, this small fraction of the entire structure, that is itself quite difficult to explain. His mother could not grasp it properly. As far as she could imagine it at that time, it was something like a bubble in a bubble, and this layer between two bubbles, that's what we call Earth now. An example of the things which she could not wrap her mind around was, for example, how do the dinosaurs live in these giant cavities under Earth and get sun rays? That she could not understand, because he said that the sun rays get somehow like refracted there in a way of physics which currently we don't understand. So the dinosaur race, they live very comfortably in these large cavities where it is actually very clean and beautiful, and they have this very soft, very gentle green grass there upon which they feed. They, Vyacheslav explained, along with all the other races which live under Earth, they are, he said, semi-material, like half material in the sense we understand it. And then he said that the easiest way to imagine it is like the people who meet Sasquatches. You know, sometimes they see them and then only the devices will detect them and the person will feel that there is somebody there. There will be some movement of air, but they will see nothing. That's because the Sasquatches, they still reside in the dimension for which we have decided to remain blind currently. So my personal guess is that his mother did not understand properly because she asked him to explain how can the rays of the sun get refracted kilometers under the Earth's surface, and when he started explaining, it was like a dead end. She could not understand anything. I guess that's because the physics which would explain that refraction is not fully physics which belongs to our dimension only. Now, regarding the sun itself, Vyacheslav said that the idea that most modern people hold about it is only partially true. Indeed, its outer layer is very hot and one can say molten. However, inside, the weather, he said, is rather pleasant. The moon, sadly, he said, the parasites have turned it currently into their base. It is full of devils now. And back then, decades ago, once the moon looked strange, you know. The clouds were forming something unusual around it, and the people went out to watch. But he did not encourage them. He said, already they have taken over this space. They are preparing for war with Christ, with God. And they have taken over in what we call space here above us. Even back then, he said, they can already show whatever they want with the sun or with the moon, and they will be doing it. When the apocalyptic times start, people sometimes they will be watching the things they will be showing on the moon in the way people now watch TV. They will turn it into an entertainment. And all these modern cosmology fairy tales, according to Vyacheslav, are just a penguinian bluff, sheer lunacy. They came up with all these stories so that the people will have some respect for them and allow them to wear classy suits like Armani suits. Otherwise, they would wander naked like their brothers in the wild, scavenging for fish. Vyacheslav described the earth as something very stable and not a ball that flies and bounces around like crazy. It stays peacefully on the primeval waters of the Garbhodaka Ocean. And the stories about the dinosaurs who allegedly got extinct millions of years ago, he bursted in wild laughter when he heard that people can believe such nonsense. He said they are all well and they live in these cavities allotted to their race inside the earth. Earlier, they lived along with the human race, but then at one point of time, so was the will of the Lord, he decided to send them to the underground worlds, and he just made a passage. It magically for us opened, and all the dinosaurs went there. They only visit us time to time, probably the Loch Ness is the most internationally famous example, but they also live in lakes in Africa, also in the region where Vyacheslav was born, there is a lake with a similar creature in the vicinity. And the reason for which they have access to these lakes is that the bottoms of these lakes are connected to the designed by God system for clean drinking water of earth, of which we also don't understand anything. That's why we are puzzled when, for example, shipwrecks reappear in another ocean. This should not have happened if our understanding of Earth was correct, but it happens because there are these passages under Earth, and there is giant like a creature. Vyacheslav compared it something like a skin maybe of enormous size, which is like a living purifier of all water. And now that man has managed to clog this entire system with Chinese plastic bags or whatever we find handy, that's why when the tribulation starts, the water will disappear. Everything will just get completely clogged, and then even whatever is currently in the oceans and the rivers, that will disappear in the giant folds, which will start appearing all over the world, and those will be of unimaginable proportions. Like the biggest one, which will open in China, not only the earth will split, also it will open in such a way that actually a large portion of the population will fall inside. And the Chinese, they know about this from their own prophecies. And this was the original cause for which they started making these plans already long ago for conquering territories which do not belong to them so that they can relocate before their motherland takes off for the abyss. On the top of that, some of these cavities are radioactive, and radioactivity, it seems, is somehow tuned to the level of development of the dinosaurs. And during the end times, during the tribulation, it will be the will of the Lord that the dinosaurs come again to the surface, to our world, and mingle with us and feed on us for a very short period. And these dinosaurs that will come here for a while, they will be even more intelligent than their forefathers who left our corner of the earth probably not so long ago, because we have medieval accounts of meeting dinosaurs really a lot, and drawings which give lots of details which the artists could not have guessed based on the archaeological finds at that time, or at least what the mainstream history tells us about those archaeological finds. There is abundant, undeniable evidence that the Penguinian fairy tales about the dinosaurs don't hold any water at all. Just one case out of the many on the island of Sakhalin. They found the corpse of dinosaurs, which they were telling us that got extinct millions of years ago. And what did they do? Just published in the news that a find that could rewrite the history and so on. And of course, they never rewrite anything, even after thousands of such finds against zero finds supporting the Penguinian fairy tales. But the people who read the news, they get the impression that, you see, the people who are writing, obviously they care about finding out the truth. You see, they themselves say about rewriting. So this psychological trick works very well. Vyacheslav described the dinosaurs as being more intelligent even than the cleverest dog we know. So when they return, many of them will be carnivorous, reaching up to 25 meters in height. They will dine on us for a short period, and they will be all over the world, but usually they will not venture very far from the rivers and the lakes, from which it seems at least most of them will appear. So in some regions there will be lots of them, while other regions will be more peaceful. For men, it will be extremely difficult to put up any resistance. Our weapons will be like toys for them. Their skin will be extremely thick, and even if we manage to wound them during open fight, still we won't win because they will have multiple systems of blood circulation inside with multiple hearts. And of course, what is worse, that often they will be kind of invisible for us. Like the person will feel a presence, will even hear that something is moving. But since our inner vision is mostly dormant, they will be only partially visible to us. Sometimes we'll see them, sometimes not. For many people, it will be too late when they see them. Vyacheslav explained why the Lord will decide to let the dinosaurs loose for a short time on Earth. The reason for that will be to kind of prepare the people for the new age in terms of changing their mentality. The modern people, for no reason, abandon their absolute faith in so-called science. So that's why they need such a dramatic sight, like the episode with the dinosaurs, to shake them up awake from this penguinian hypnosis. Now, the dinosaurs will start appearing in mass at the time when the Earth's surface and the tectonic plates become unstable. And when the Earth starts moving, they will find pathways on which they can walk from their underground cavities to our space. And since there are many other races who actually live in various cavities in different depths under the Earth, they will also start coming at different times to our space. And what they share in common, as I said, is that they are semi-material, sometimes visible to us in plain language, and also that all of them are not human race friendly. They hate us. There are also many, if you see them, you will say alien dwarfs. If you have heard about the Karlika Lyoshenka, that is one of the races. All these mean creatures, they will start crawling out of graves, of folds from the holes in the earth. It will be like an open highway for them, even from the sewage. And they will be given green light to torment us, catch us, eat us. And very dangerous will be also these giant worms with teeth. A couple of decades ago, Vyacheslav said that currently they are coming on the surface here with us only in Turkey, or mostly in Turkey, and the shepherds over there know about them. They steal their cattle and eat it. They're very big, and again, another common feature of all these underground inhabitants is that they know the art of hypnosis. They know how to hypnotize us. So when they want to catch somebody, they will first hypnotize him, kind of make him fall asleep on the spot, and then they would eat him. So these giant man-eating worms, they will also come out on the surface during the apocalyptic times, but at least we stand a chance. The only thing we can do when we try to fight them is to run away, because the thing we should know about them is that they can only protrude their front part, their head towards us, and the end of their body will always remain in the ground, so at least they have limited range. And if the person, the possible victim, has a strong psyche, they can feel the worm on time and at least run away before they get hypnotized. And how to strengthen your spirit? There is a video on my channel, I believe in the playlist with alternative healing, and that's about developing sattvic qualities. These are the qualities which we will need at that time. Also, there is a prayer which I think I will give in one of the future episodes, recommended by Otrok Vyacheslav. And as an example of being eaten in such a way by similar creatures, he said it is already going on actually in the tubes, in the undergrounds, in the cities where they have such tubes, in those dead-end corridors. Sometimes there is a lonely passenger, and they are this type of creatures that already reside there in the dark spaces, and they hunt for lonely people. That's why actually many people disappear even now in the underground. So these creatures, they're invisible, the ones that live in the underground. And when they eat somebody, there aren't even clothes left, just the person disappears somewhere in the dark, and that's it. And Vyacheslav explained that if the person has strong spirit and knows what is going on, at least he will hear when first these creatures come nearby. He won't be able to see them, but he will hear kind of strange buzzing and he will feel a presence. And if at that time he knows about this race and he runs as fast as possible and prays, he can escape. So who will be devoured by these malevolent races will not be random. We can stand up to them. In the future episodes, I will give details for making an amulet and a prayer recommended both by Otrok Vyacheslav. The prayer is Воскресния молитва, да воскресне Бог и разточаться в разиво. But of course, the most important is who wears the amulet and chants the prayer. And although Vyacheslav described the people who are targeted currently by alien abductions and in the future openly for meals by these underground races with orthodox terminology, at the end it boils down the same. And the Tamasic people, they will attract those type of predatory races, while the Sattvic people, they can put up a resistance. So why bother with them when the Tamasic folks are sure catch? So the apocalyptic times will be a golden opportunity for all these man-hating races to finally dine on us. And as they're digging for their lunch from underneath to get us, we're helping them with all our mining and oil extracting industries, and all our endeavors, they will provide the expected result, the ultimate result during the apocalyptic times. We will help them get to us. Vyacheslav said that the times when the tectonic plates start moving around in the softened earth, that will be really like Pandora's Box, because then also lots of graves will be opened, and all these old historic sicknesses that we think have been completely exterminated, they will come back. but in new forms, even heavier. It will be impossible to cure any of them. There will be no healthcare system, as explained in the previous video anyway, and people will be finally left to their psychic powers. That's why it is very precious now. The time is very precious to develop sattvic qualities. That will be your only means of defense. So, besides the mean, hypnotic, anti-human races and the evolved over the century viruses of all sicknesses, something else will also crawl out from these folds, and those will be creatures like hybrids, cyborgs, all kinds of unimaginably ugly stuff created in the parasitic laboratories, which will be also abandoned by their servants when the period of very intense natural disasters will start. I don't think that has started yet. We have an increase of natural disasters, but I don't see it as being really apocalyptic yet. So all these employees over there, they will simply quit, and they will leave all the viruses and the creatures in the cages. And later on, when all that is broken, all that will escape. Vyacheslav's mother asked him, why are they breeding these monsters down there? For what purpose exactly? And he explained, oh, Mama, these are just devils. They will just naturally do everything disgusting. They know that it is not pleasant for Christ to look at their activities and their projects and these perverted monsters, because God created beautiful species. This is anti-godly to create such monsters, and they know this is unpleasant for Christ, so they do it only to irritate him. People are doing a big mistake by listening to the penguins, who are out of their minds, of course, and building rockets for so-called space exploration. Because these machines are too aggressive for the gentle Earth as it is created by the Lord. And when they actually go to the upper layers of our atmosphere, they tear up the top protective layers, and these wounds in the atmosphere, they never heal. On the top of that, when the metallic monsters return back to the Earth's atmosphere, they bring crystals, which are a type of matter that will cause problems when imported to the earthly realm. And these crystals, they remain in the top layers of the atmosphere, and as all crystals, they start growing their own mesh, their own structures, exactly as crystals grow here on Earth. And this mesh, kind of ice mesh, has been growing in size for some time now. And can you imagine any better time to drop on Earth other than the apocalyptic time? No, that will be the right moment, and during the tribulation, one fine day, this mesh will simply drop on Earth. It will be giant, and whoever ends up being caught in between the lines of the mesh still can survive, but those who happen to be below it, they will turn into puddles of blood, unfortunately. And there will be entire regions which will freeze, and nothing alive will remain, because the temperatures there will be like minus 200 degrees. While in overall, the Earth will be getting warmer and warmer in general. And as it gets warmer inside the Earth, These cavities, some of them natural, some of them man-made, they will render the top layer very unstable, and then all kinds of movement will begin. We know about the giant sinkholes, and we have seen some faults where the earth splits. But during the proper apocalypse, this will be taken to the extreme. As you are sitting, you may see the next building actually kind of walking or floating on the street, because the earthly planes, which are now stable, they will turn very soft, and buildings will start moving. And not only sideways, mostly it will be downwards. Entire geographic regions will simply fall into the abyss if they happen to be above a cavity. Sometimes the region will fall together with the buildings and the people. In some cases, even people will land down there in the kilometers deep shafts alive, but it will be impossible to save them because we don't have resources for this type of rescue operations when the bottom is many kilometers down there. And what to speak of organized rescue operations? People will suffer greatly, also, Vyacheslav said, from the lack of simple bandage and disinfectant to do something for the numerous pus wounds they will get from the disease which escaped from the graves. That will be a big problem. That is why Vyacheslav advised that people should store disinfectant in good quantity, and also bandages, and he said simple fabric also, but only natural, like cotton or linen. She doesn't remember why exactly Vyacheslav said that having supplies of fabric is also important, but she remembers that once he mentioned that in those times people should wear only clothing of natural fibers, because these plastic fabrics, they catch fire very easily, and in those times when it gets warmer and warmer, and when there will be no water, fires will just appear very, very often, way more often than now. And as far as the wounds, people will quickly run out of disinfectant, and antiseptic soap solution could also be used when one doesn't have disinfectant at hand. He said, and here I will add a side note from me, that in my survival guidebook there are also lists of natural herbs from which one could make poultices and use them for this type of wounds. And of course, MMS solution can be used. All of those who accept the passport, the new passport of the Dajjal and the microschema, all of them without any exception will be very, very sick. And not only from the historic evolved viruses, but also from the viruses which escaped from the laboratories of the servants of the Dajjal. And amongst them there will be one new sickness which will be especially nasty. It will render the people so weak that they will be barely able to move. Only the noble souls will not get this sickness, and in general the Lord will be providing protection for his people from the sicknesses as well. So many people will be perishing for all kinds of reasons mentioned in this and the previous episode, that more people will die in time of peace than in the time of war. Actually, initially the burial services will have a hard time catching up, and when this sickness that makes everybody weak comes, then there will be no question of bearing anybody at all. People will not have energy to even move their own deceased relatives. At that time, if there are any people of weak body and very poor health left, they will be wiped out amongst those who are not loyal to the Lord, I mean. They will be all wiped out by this new disease, and at that time will remain only marked people of better health, so to say, and even they will barely move. The penguins are trying their best to keep the people always in an alarm state because of the danger of rising water levels, which they blame on the melting of the ice cap, which is sheer nonsense. There is no such danger at all for the Earth. Actually, the greatest danger is that the atmosphere, which is already oversaturated with all kinds of poisons, that may actually burst into flames at any time. There is a very good chance that this happens. It will not happen because the plan of the Lord is to keep the Earth and repair it instead of blowing it up. But Vyacheslav mentioned it just for the sake of actual probability danger that threatens the Earth. However, the top layer of the atmosphere of the sky will burn in a second during the tribulation, and then the clouds will become very low, the pressure will start jumping up and down, and even the sky will change its color. Eventually, this will be repaired by the angels when they build the new Earth. Then the sky will be a very beautiful new color, as well as the waters, everything they will repair. All these disasters described in this episode and the others, they will mostly affect the marked people. The unmarked, they are so few that the Lord will have to take active care of them if He wants the human race to continue. Otherwise, there won't be any left. And also, Vyacheslav said something which may seem a bit counterintuitive, but he said that the noble souls, they will suffer a little bit, but that will be mostly in the beginning of the tribulation, he said. At the time when they realize that they are almost alone and abandoned by the society, at that time, he said, there will be some confusion and they will feel kind of abandoned by destiny, but this will be short, and later on they will feel better, actually, because they will feel the protection of the living Lord.